its foot was on earth and its top in the sky. This ladder is long, it is strong and well made, has stood hundreds of years and is not yet decayed. Many millions have climbed it and reached Zion's hill, and thousands of faith are climbing it still. Come, let us ascend, all may climb it who will, for the angels of Jacob are guarding it still. And remember each step that by faith we pass o'er, some prophet or martyr has trod it before. And when we arrive at that haven of rest, we shall hear the glad words, come up hither, ye blessed. Here are regions of light, here are mansions of bliss. Who would not climb such a ladder as this? Alleluia to Jesus, who died on the tree and has raised up a ladder of mercy for me. Alleluia, alleluia, and has raised up a ladder of mercy for me.
Good morning. Welcome to United Church of Chapel Hill. Thank you for being part of this community of followers who believe in justice, equity, and love. We are so blessed for your faithfulness and grace for our congregation. Please, let's keep taking the necessary precautions so we can be together again very soon. Remember that if you are experiencing an emergency situation, please go to our website and complete the application for emergency funds. Also, if you have a prayer request, feel free to contact one of the pastors so we can include you on our prayer list. So let's prepare our hearts to listen to God in the voices of our community.
Hi friends! So excited to introduce you to Compassion Camp. We're getting ready for our very first virtual at-home Vacation Bible School here at United Church of Chapel Hill. And our whole camp is based on this fancy word, compassion. Do you know what that means? Right, like compassion is when you are able to truly feel what another person's feeling. An example I can give you is if your brother or your sister step on a leg up and it hurts, you know it hurts if you yourself have also stepped on a leg up because those really hurt your feet. So you can feel their pain and you can sit with them in that moment because you can really see where they are. And that's compassion. So we're going to spend a whole week together exploring compassion for ourselves, for our community, for our neighbors, and for our world. And we're going to do that through music and Bible stories and crafts. And it's going to be so much fun. And I'm so excited to share this Compassion Camp with you so that we can learn how to be kind and to be loved, to be you. So have your parents sign you up so we can put together a compassion pack for you and get you all set for our very first virtual VBS. Bye, friends.
Blessings to you. The readings for this morning come from the book of Genesis and the Gospel of Matthew. Both readings will be in Spanish. Genesis 28, 10, 19a. Jacobo partió de Berseba y se encaminó hacia Harán. Cuando llegó a cierto lugar, se detuvo para pasar la noche, porque ya estaba anocheciendo. Tomó una piedra y la puso como almohada y se acostó a dormir en ese lugar. Allí soñó que había una escalinata apoyada en la tierra y cuyo extremo superior llegaba hasta el cielo. Por ella subían y bajaban los ángeles de Dios. En el sueño, el Señor estaba de pie junto a él y le decía: yo soy el Señor, el Dios de tu abuelo Abraham y de tu padre Isaac. A ti y a tu descendencia les daré la tierra sobre la que estás acostado. Tu descendencia será tan numerosa como el polvo de la tierra. Te extenderás de norte a sur y de oriente a occidente, y todas las familias de la tierra serán bendecidas por medio de ti y de tu descendencia. Yo estoy contigo, te protegeré por donde quiera que vayas y te traeré de vuelta a esta tierra. No te abandonaré hasta cumplir con todo lo que te he prometido. Al despertar, Jacobo de su sueño pensó: en realidad el Señor está en este lugar y yo no me había dado cuenta. Y con mucho temor añadió: qué asombroso es este lugar. Es nada menos que la casa de Dios, es la puerta del cielo. A la mañana siguiente, Jacob se levantó muy temprano, tomó la piedra que había usado como almohada y la erigió como una estela y derramó aceite sobre ella. En aquel lugar había una ciudad que se llamaba Luz, pero Jacob le cambió el nombre y le puso Betel. Matthew 13, 24-30. Jesús les contó otra parábola. El reino de los cielos es como un hombre que sembró buena semilla en su campo. Pero mientras todos dormían, llegó su enemigo y sembró mala hierba entre el trigo. Y se fue. Cuando brotó el trigo y se formó la espiga, apareció también la mala hierba. Los siervos fueron al dueño y le dijeron: Señor, ¿no sembró usted semilla buena en su campo? Entonces, ¿de dónde salió la mala hierba? Esto es obra de un enemigo, les respondió. Le preguntaron los siervos: ¿quiere usted que vayamos y arranquemos la mala hierba? No, les contestó, no sea que al arrancar la mala hierba, también arranquen con ella el trigo. Dejen que crezca juntos hasta la cosecha. Entonces les diré a los segadores: recojan primero la mala hierba y átenla en manojos para quemarla. Después recojan el trigo y guárdenlo en mi granero. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Would you pray with me, please? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, last week I hiked a section of the Appalachian Trail. I walked from Damascus, Virginia, 38 miles north through the Grayson Highlands State Park. Now, this section of the trail features peaceful walks along the creek, cool green tunnels of blooming rhododendron, and long climbs to the peaks of two of Virginia's highest mountains. I didn't have a lot of time to make the journey, only 2 nights on the trail, which meant that I had to put in a lot of miles each day that I was out there. And by the time that I arrived at my campsite on the second night, I was pretty tired. I also wanted to get an early start the next day, so I was tempted to save time and energy by sleeping in one of those open-air shelters that is common along the Appalachian Trail, rather than, setting up my tent as I usually do. Now, the biggest drawback to staying in one of those shelters, of course, is that you don't get to control who else might want to stay in the shelter on the night that you were there. And there are some odd characters, who escape to the wilderness for weeks at a time. Peculiar, bizarre people sometimes that you cross paths with out on the trail. Not always the type that you want to have long conversations with or maybe even sleep next to at night. It was nearly dusk when I arrived at the Wise shelter that evening. I was welcomed by a friendly duo of father and son who had already begun boiling their water for dinner. And they told me that they were out on a grand adventure together. They were going to hike 170 miles through the mountains of Virginia. And we enjoyed a brief conversation as I was getting to know them, and I was sharing with them about my own journey out there. And I was beginning to think, these wouldn't be such bad people to spend the night with in the shelter after all. "Are you planning to stay in the shelter with us tonight?" the boy asked me. And my answer was interrupted by a new voice from the wilderness. "Oh yeah, we'll make room for you," I heard behind me. And I turned and found there a grizzled old man. He hadn't shaved for days, and he wasn't wearing a shirt, and tobacco spittle was dribbling down his bare chest. "Wolfman," he said, reaching his hand out to introduce himself to me using his trail name. "You can sleep right there next to me," he said, pointing to an empty spot in the shelter floor as he spat a brown ooze into the campfire. I thanked him for his hospitality, but based on his appearance, I wasn't yet ready to make a commitment as to where I was going to sleep that night. Well, this is sort of what the kingdom of heaven is like, Jesus says. When you have one thing in mind for yourself, a pristine vision of the future, and you later contend with surprises, disappointments, compromises along the way. It's sort of like, he says, when a farmer sows seed in her field, and does she not plan for and expect anything less than a bumper crop? She reads the almanac, she prepares the soil, she sows her seed, yet the season brings so many things that she does not expect and can't be prepared for. In the story that Jesus tells in today's lesson, a farmer of wheat has cultivated her land and scattered her seed. But an enemy sneaks into her field in the dark of night and sows among her carefully planted wheat all sorts of different weeds. And what is she to do upon making this frustrating discovery? The weeds are too numerous to pull out one by one. And if she pulls them out while her seedlings are still so fragile, then she risks uprooting the crop that she had planted, defeating the purpose of her harvest. This is the parable of the weeds among the wheat. It made me think of a story by the Nigerian novelist Chinua Achebe, who writes about a great priest among the Igbo people of Nigeria. Ezulu is the steward of Igbo traditions when they are threatened by the arrival of colonial Christianity. The British have established an administrative office in Ezulu's territory, and missionary pastors have come along to eradicate the worship of traditional African gods and to catechize the native people in Christian dogmatics. And these newcomers, they impose their religious customs with the threat of overwhelming firepower. They have arrived and no one knows how to make them go away. Weeds among the wheat. One of the first Igbo converts in Achebe's story explains it this way. He says, "When suffering knocks at your door, and you say there is no seat left for him, he tells you not to worry because he's brought his own stool." The white man is like that. The white people and the Christian religion have come to Imwaro and they have brought their own stool. Uninvited, nonetheless, they sit themselves down at the table. This is a novel about how Ezulu makes such great sacrifices to coexist with the new white people and their religion, and he finds it increasingly difficult to coexist with his own people and his own religion. Well, Jesus tidies up today's parable meticulously. He explains that the good seed is sown by the righteous people of God, and the bad seed that sprouts those loathsome weeds are sown by the evil one. And let us not worry ourselves about weeding the field, Jesus says, because God will sort it out in the fullness of time. Let both of them grow together, he explains, until the harvest. And at the harvest time, I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into the barn. So you don't have to worry about weeding the field. You let the wheat and the weeds grow together, Jesus says, and we'll worry about sorting them out later. And we can see the wisdom in this allegory. For would it not be self-defeating for us to set ourselves to the task of plucking every weed that represents some sort of evil in the world? And the parable should make us wonder if we are powerful enough in the first place to pull all of those weeds. It should make us wonder, too, whether we are so righteous that we could actually distinguish between what's a weed and what is the wheat. Perhaps our own righteousness is still at such a fragile, embryonic state that we can't uproot the evil around us without uprooting ourselves. For what good is it to the realm of God if to remove evil we have to become evil? This is the question at the crux of every struggle for justice and peace. How to purify the world without soiling ourselves. Well, to approach this parable as if it is imparting advice is to misunderstand the purpose of a parable. This parable is not meant to be read as a strategy. It's not teaching us anything in particular. It's not an instruction manual for how to deal with evil in the world. This parable won't show us how to be anti-racist. This parable does not give us a method for suppressing COVID-19. Neither, on the other hand, does it instruct us merely to accept evil passively. This parable is just not a strategy. You can't read it like that. No, much better simply to read this parable as a description of the world as it is. Here is a field where wheat grows, and weeds are also there. Here is a field where the Igbo people are, and now Christians are also there. Here is a field where a hiker has come along and grizzled old wolfman is also there. This parable can also make us question what role we play in the story. Are we the wheat? Are we the weeds? Are we the farmer? And our desire to be agents of change might lead us to cast ourselves as the farmer, sowing and reaping, planting and plucking, working and judging, organizing, activating, teaching, instructing. But perhaps we are not in the place of power here. Perhaps we are just the wheat growing among the weeds. Is it the job of the wheat to weed the field? Of course not. That's the farmer's job. The wheat's only job is to grow, to reach toward heaven, to shine in the reflected light of the sun. That is the job of the wheat. So it is for the children of God who are living like wheat among the weeds. Or when we remember the narratives of Christian colonists and we listen to how people of color have been impacted by white people who are all too sure of themselves, maybe it would be better, on the other hand, for us to imagine ourselves as the weeds among the wheat. Are we native or are we invasive? Are we the crop that the farmer desires, or are we like a seed that has fallen into the wrong place? The only thing that distinguishes a weed from other plants is that the gardener does not like where it is growing. So we always have to ask if it is our role, really, to uproot what seems not to belong here. When we exercise power that does not belong to us, we take on properties of evil and become the very thing that we wish to exterminate. So we remember that this field where we are growing does not belong to the wheat or to the weeds. This field is not even really the farmer's, if that's who you want to be. The field belongs to God. The field belongs to God. Well, you know, certain trade-offs have to be made on long journeys. And I could just as well have moved along and staked my tent anywhere along that stream. It was a big wilderness that night. And there I would have enjoyed the privacy, the quiet, the solitude that I prized. But I would have missed the twilight conversation, the new friends that I might have found, the comfort of keeping company in a distant and lonely place. So I returned to that campsite there by the shelter. And Wolfman, I said, I'll take that spot there on the floor next to you if you don't mind. And I planted myself there, if only for one night, like a stalk of wheat among the weeds. Amen.
Let us gather our hearts together now for a moment of prayer. Holy One, in whom we live and move and have our very being, we come to you today in gratitude for the opportunity to gather together, to continue being your people who gather in your name. Even in this virtual space, we know that there is nothing that can separate us from your love for us and our love one to another. O Christ, who is before us, make the path clear as we step out in faith. Christ, who is behind us, be the assurance we need, the wind on our backs that empowers us to continue walking in your love. Christ, who is beside us, reach out your hand to hold ours. To those who need comfort, to those who need reassurance, to those who need your presence. Christ, who is above us, help us to keep dreaming, to keep conspiring for a world like the one that you envision, the one that Christ taught. Christ, who is underneath us, be the rock upon which we stand, our sure foundation. And Christ, who is within us, embolden us, grant us wisdom, and grant us courage for the facing of this hour. Christ, who came before us, be with us now as we pray together the prayer that you taught us to pray by saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God look upon you with kindness and give you peace.